Um, but I think that that's how you grow, is that realizing that you can make a mistake, you can pick yourself up, and you can continue on, um, to what's the word I'm looking for? It's just it's where we can, I guess, as we learn, we improve upon those choices, and we then hopefully make the next choice will be the a better choice. Um, but all those choices is a collection, and we wouldn't be who we are now without all those choices and without that collection.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to help our listeners live their best audacious life ever. We do that through empowerment and inspiring our individuals, again, to live that best audacious life ever. And thank you for being here. We appreciate you for taking time out of your day to join us. Now, we're talking a little bit today about purpose and finding our purpose on today's episode. And just like a skilled painter who uses different colors to create a masterpiece, our purpose lies within us. It's waiting to be discovered and expressed. Now, in our interview today, we've got Russ Haddad joining us, and he'll dive into how he found his purpose through writing and poetry, and how you too can embark on a journey of self-discovery. Now, Russ, he is a poet and a writer who discovered his passion for poetry at a young age, and through his personal experiences, including the loss of his father and as well going through a divorce, Russ found healing and growth through writing. The writing process was a beautiful thing for him. And in this episode, Russ will share his insights into his personal journey of growth and self-discovery, again, through that process of writing. His experiences and reflections offer inspiration to listeners who may be seeking to find their own purpose and navigate through their own life challenges. So now that we've got you all set, here is our conversation with Russ. Hey, Russ, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you making the time like this, my friend.
Yeah, Oddly, thank you very much for having me. I look forward to it, and really appreciate the time.
Great, it's fantastic. Here on this podcast, we spend much time talking and really talking about the ways and the importance and significance of living this best audacious life that we talk about. And I think one of the very important, and I'm very, very respectful of the fact that we each have our own journeys, our own experiences, our own path that we go down. And so, the way Tom lives his life and Sally lives hers is going to be different. But it does not mean that they both can't live that audacious life and be on that path of greatness and experience the joy and happiness, fulfillment that I believe everyone is after. A lot of this ties into some of your work as a poet, you're a writer, and so a lot of this sort of feeds into the work that you do. And perhaps maybe as a starting point, we'll get you to a little bit talk about the work that you do and your writings.
Sure. So I've been writing poetry really just kind of as a side thing since my teenage years. So it was back in I was 12 years old. My father had passed away. And a few years later, I started writing for the high school newspaper, and they kind of out of nowhere said, we need like a poet for the school newspaper. And that's where I kind of started doing it. And I learned that it had become an outlet for me, that I had these pent up emotions from my father's death and everything like that. And then the usual teenage angst type of stuff. Then I kind of just carried it on off and on till I was in my mid 50s, and then COVID hit, and I kind of had a chance to, like many people, just had a chance to stop and reflect. And I saw that I had all these poems and these works, and I didn't realize I had so much. quite honestly, and that had spanned so almost 40 years. So I said, hey, why don't I polish these up a little bit, put them together as a collection, and then publish them, more for the satisfaction of just kind of being able to do that, and to be able to express myself. I have always been, ever since second grade, I was kind of always writing to one degree or another. And even in my professional life, I was a newspaper reporter for a few years out of college and everything like that. So I always had this thing about writing. I always liked putting words to paper and using words and kind of using them in different ways. But it really kind of spans really three phases of my life. My book Growth that I put out, it really kind of the immaturity, kind of the young years, coming of age to sort of a thing where, you do stupid things. You're coming into your own as far as learning to relate to people and
Sure.
awkward teenage type of stuff. And then that kind of grows.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the overriding thing for me, is that I feel like I've gone through things that many people have gone through, but maybe they haven't put it down on paper, or maybe they're having issues with maybe coping with certain things in life. And then hopefully through my writing, they get some sort of support, or not so much inspiration, but they just really, they say that although somebody else has gone through what they may be going through, and that just helps them move through. And then through the course of growth, I go through my college years and first jobs and marriage and divorce and then remarriage, and there's various things that happen in between, life situations and everything like that, to a point where I towards the end of growth, and kind of that last phase of the book is called continuing maturity.
Mhm.
And it's just because it never ends, right? In my mind, it just never ends. um you're always growing and always moving forward, and that's really kind of where I get to a point was, the end of growth was a jumping off point for me for the next part of my life. Um so that and it kind of spurred my wanting to continue to writing. It just continue to light that fire, maybe even more brighter than I had before. So I've actually, since the publication, I've put together another book. Put it was a little bit more. It's called Pieces of Mind, and it's just been more I guess, observations of what's going on with our society these days, the good, bad, and the indifferent. So it just I yes, it is realizing a dream just through life experiences, in hopes that other people can maybe relate to what I write.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's great. And, certainly a couple of things that really stand out to me as you're talking. First off, I love the different phases of life that you capture. I really sort of think that our lives, when we have that opportunity to sort of stop and look back, they're almost like chapters in a book, right? And
They are,
chapter
yeah,
one is right, and that was the awkward teenager. Chapter three, couldn't find friends. Uh, girls. Chapter five. I mean,
right,
school life, all like all of these things, and I think, and the other interesting thing too, which I do love the idea of breaking up into chapters, is what we'll realize is that in each chapter, we came across or had to deal with some form of adversity, right?
yes,
And
mhm,
in that moment, you know, as an awkward teenager, not being able to approach girls was the most devastating thing on the planet in that moment. But we
right.
found a way to move through that onto the next phase in life. And when you look back, you're like, well, that wasn't, I mean, I get it was a problem then, but it's not a big deal now, kind of a thing, right? And it's
Well,
just,
yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, that's it, and maybe that's part of it, is that when you're in the moment, you can't always see the way through it.
right,
And that's, I guess that was part of the beauty of being having 40 years worth of poems, is that I could look back at those situations and realized, I guess, more than anything else, that I was able to to manage my way through those things,
yeah,
but also hopefully gave me a little bit of wisdom to help others who may be in similar situations.
Yeah. And I think it's a very healthy exercise to go through. I think sometimes we can easily forget our wins, our accomplishments, the things that we had done. Like, look, when I was a kid, I didn't know how to ride a bike, and that was a big deal when I got to ride a bike, right? You know what I mean? Like, it was a
Hmm.
big deal. And so, if we can get, and I mean, I like the idea of celebrating in general. Um, but yeah, the idea of just showing excitement about the things that we've accomplished is a good thing. And if we can chart that and capture that, then I think then that's, we're on a good path. And so I love the fact that you break down the chapters. The other thing that you talked about a couple times, I think is also pretty fantastic, is the idea of being able to help others along the way, right? And
Hmm.
by sharing our experiences, you know, it's so super easy to believe and think that when you're going through something, nobody on the planet has any idea what it feels like, has any idea what that experience is all about. And then all of a sudden, you read someone that went through the exact same thing, and they may even tell you how they got through it and what they did, right? That is so powerful and so encouraging and so uplifting to know that, oh, so and so did this, I can do that, like that. It's like, so you touched on a couple of them I wanted to highlight. I think it's important.
Yeah, it is so easy to feel isolated, isn't it? And I think there's, especially, things that we've lived through recently with COVID and everything like that. You kind of lose connection sometimes, and even through, the social media and kind of the other things that are kind of going on in life these days, um, that you feel a little bit cut off sometimes.
Yeah.
But there are people that, I mean, we're humans, right? I mean, I like to think that we were able to help one another in these times, and that, um, not that my writing is any great epic poetry or anything like that, but I really do think I'm just a regular person, and I like to think that what I'm writing, that it's something that is relevant to other people's lives, and that they can just gain just a little bit. I don't know if hope is the right word, or just,
Yeah.
um, an ability to just a little bit of strength, maybe, to keep moving forward.
Does writing have any kind of personal significance for you? I mean, outside of you capturing what's going on,
I mean, really, it's yeah. I mean, it really is. I mean, I think a lot of writing has to be personal to a large degree, where it's got to come from your mentality, your attitude, and kind of what you hold inside of you, your thoughts and beliefs and things like that. And so it's really um, kind of how things have impacted me, have affected me, how things have affected the people around me that I love and trust and respect, um, how they have lived through things. I mean, there's several of the poems are really it's from they're about how other people have influenced me for the better.
Mhm.
Um, so I try to carry that through and some of the poetry as kind of like tributes to them. Because I think that's the other part, and I still may not be good at telling people that I appreciate them, or that they have really helped me in a lot of ways, um, and supported me through good, bad, or in different times. You know what I mean? And so this is kind of my way that I'm saying thank you to a lot of people as well.
Gotcha. Um, uh, I want to go back to you talk about losing your father at a young age. Um, how much of that influenced you to write poetry?
At the time, I didn't realize when I first started writing, and even through the years,
Hmm.
because I mean, thoughts. I mean, I hope it's normal that that I mean, you can drift back into the past and just think of how you've handled situations and everything. And when my father passed away, um, it was a sudden death. He died of a heart attack, and you know, I'm the youngest of four children in my family, and um, I didn't I don't know how to really say this, but I didn't really react. It was such a traumatic thing. I didn't show emotion. I had a hard time crying, only because I think it was just so overwhelming, that I kind of kept it all bottled up. And I guess I carried that I started kind of pulling that out for myself in high school when I started writing poetry.
Mhm.
But honestly, that was I was then, and I still am, a work in progress. I never really kind of realized what impact that had in my life until, I think my first divorce, like, my divorce from my first wife, that that made me really confront some things, emotionally,
Mhm.
that I didn't I just didn't realize it was there. Um, and just the writing helped me push through that.
Right.
Um, and but it also, it's allowed me to kind of be a little bit more humble, and just kind of say, hey, this is where you need to improve on things, maybe become a little bit more self-aware. Um, and again, going back to being appreciative of the people, being better at saying thank you, being better at saying yes, I love you, or um, just I guess just being there more than anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes you got to really look deep within and to uncover stuff, right? And
Mhm.
when you do that, you realize that, again, uncover means it was always there; it was just not visible.
Yeah.
And when you make it visible, then that's where the learnings come in and growth, which is something that's important to you as well. I want to sort of talk about the significance of just kind of growth in general.
Yeah, I mean, as far as just the concept of growth, I mean, I think we all go through series of things in our lives, that I think we make choices. We always make choices, and sometimes the right choices, sometimes they're the bad choices.
Yeah.
But we should learn from every one of those choices, um, and also understand that sometimes, when it's not the right choice, it's not the worst thing in the world. Um, but I think that's how you grow, is that realizing that you can make a mistake, you can pick yourself up, and you can continue on, um, to what's the word I'm looking for? It's just it's where we can, I guess, as we learn, we improve upon those choices, and we then hopefully make the next choice will be the a better choice. Um, but all those choices is a collection, and we wouldn't be who we are now without all those choices and without that collection.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. I've said many times that life is a series or collection of choices, right? And that
Mhm.
forms what our life is, and forms the path that we go down, and where we end up. So I'm glad you touched on that because that resonates with me a lot. Um, Look, adversity is going to come, right? We're all going to face adversity. We're all going to face challenges. Um, we're going to react differently because we're not all the same. We're human, so
Right.
we're not guaranteed to react the exact same. Um, I wonder if you sort of talk about adversity and its overall significance in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, to be very specific, I mean, probably the hardest periods of my life was going through the divorce, and this custody situation involved, and everything like that. And I'll be totally honest, is that, my wife, my ex-wife, and my first wife, and myself, we did not handle things very well during that period. We were very, it was about just me or just her. And we kind of lost sight of kind of what was important, and that was our child. But we, at least from my point of view, I realize now that I put him in the middle of things,
Mhm.
that there was no reason for that. But coming out of that, I mean, I've been able to realize that that wasn't the right way to go. That wasn't the right way to treat him. And I talked through it with him, and even, you know, his mother and I, don't have the greatest relationship even to this day, but just the same, it's the important thing is that we had a child together. I think we did, whether we want to give each other credit or not, we did a pretty good job of raising him, despite being in two separate households. Yeah, he's thriving, he's doing well in life, and so that's something we have in common. We're all going to have that in common. We're always proud of that.
Yeah.
But I needed to go through, but in my mind was really a terrible situation, and learning on how to handle that and cope with that better, to understand that that we did something good together. That I can't hate her for that. I can't, because we did something good together. And whether she feels that way or not with me, I mean, I don't know, but but I'm good with where I'm at with that situation. So I mean, I guess that I think adversity, one, can bring out the worst of you,
Sure.
at times, and that it did. But also over time, you have to be able to look at that behavior and say, there's a better way to handle it. And again, look at what the positive aspects of what that relationship brought. So that's where I try to figure out how to build upon adversity in a more positive way.
Yeah, it can bring all kinds of things, the good and the bad. And I think the ability to reflect and look back and say, okay, you know what, like, this is what happened, and acknowledge that, because acknowledge is a big part of all this, right?
It is. That's a great point.
Right.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Because you have to be able to admit it, not only to yourself, but to other people,
That's right. That's right. Because at the end of the day, we all got stories. Like, two people go through a situation. I'm sure if I sat down with your ex-wife and asked her, she'd have her story and it won't match with yours.
Right, right.
We all have stories that we tell.
And that's the thing. I mean, both sides of that, we did stupid things. We did terrible things to each other. And, at this point, it's just,
No, listen, I get it. I get it. Like, I've
yeah,
got a worse situation too, so I get it. There's another side of it.
Yeah.
What I find it's really fascinating, that it's like we tell the stories that we're most comfortable with. We tell the stories that we want to believe, but we tell the stories that we want others to believe, right?
right.
It doesn't mean that they're totally accurate. It doesn't mean that they're close to the truth, but that's still the story. To tell the most accurate version of what took place in the series of events, that's where there has to be some introspection. There's got to be some reflection, right? And you got to be able to say, as you did, yeah, you know what? I did some things I shouldn't have. Or I wasn't really proud of the fact I did that. Okay, all right.
But isn't that how you improve yourself as a person, and as a
Bang on.
father, friend,
Yeah.
whatever? I think that's how you do it. I think going back to acknowledgement is that really key.
Well, I don't think there is any other way. You've got to acknowledge your part that you played. And regardless of this, we're talking about divorce, but it could be any situation. You played a part of it. What was yours? And when you take that moment to reflect, could you do better? Could you change? What would you do differently next time around? Like, these are sorts of things that when we talk about growth and getting better, these are some of the things that need to happen for that to happen.
Yeah, but that's all how you heal as well. I mean, you can't go into another relationship or carry some certain things with you and expect to have healthy relationships in the future. I mean, you gotta deal with it, and that's, you either deal with it by yourself, but most people, and I'm included, I mean, you need extra help, but don't be afraid to ask for that extra help either. Whether it be a friend or a family member or professional help. But that's part, to me, that's part of the acknowledgement. I love the way you use that word. I mean, I think that says a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it opens up a lot of doors in your mind.
Totally does.
the acknowledgement.
It does, and but it just makes you better. And then of course that piece that we talked earlier is what we now can do for other people, right? So
Yeah,
so you've gone through a lifetime of acknowledgments and recognizing and appreciating and doing things, but you put them in a book, and now people are reading those and they're learning
yeah,
from it. Like
yeah.
that's really the process we're talking about here, and taking what we know.
And getting feedback, better or worse. I, people's impressions of it. I mean, again, part of this is just getting people to talk. I mean, I love just to get responses from people and just kind of, just talking through things. Because that's therapeutic for me as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I do appreciate your comment on healing, because that's an important part of the process, right? Healing, getting better, and being able to use that to move forward through life. And so actually, before Russ, you've got a writing a double A Wilson. Well, explain what that is. I'm curious.
So yeah, and this is really kind of, there's no huge significance to the name other than, so as a teenager I was shy. I was really shy. Growing up, I um being at the whole teenage angst thing. So, going through high school, writing poetry, you didn't really want people to know that you were doing that sort of a thing. You know what I mean? You were always afraid to get picked on, or people making fun of you or something like that. So, um, I'm so I one day I was writing, and I had to put the byline on the school newspaper, and I was like, A.A. Winston. And for some reason that stuck with me because it just sounded like a poet's name.
Very, very aristocratic.
But there's, I mean, there's no huge backstory. I mean, it wasn't like, um, you know, somebody else's, a poet, you're taking any inspiration from another poet's name or anything like that, or anything. It just, I literally just somehow, I don't really remember how I determined A.A. Winston, but it just sounded right.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm glad you went with it. It is very, very aristocratic, and it does sound nice.
It's,
There we go. Russ, last thing I want to ask before we get out of here, and I do again appreciate the time in the chat here. Ultimately, what do you want your readers to take away when they finish reading them, going through your works? What do you want them to walk away with?
I mean, I really just want people to at the end, just to understand and realize and take from it that, um that life does go on despite the challenges. um there's ways to go through, and life can be ugly at times, but um if you really want to, um I guess, continue on as far as just making sure you're moving in the right direction, or moving in a forward direction. I think that's the thing. Moving forward is the big part, is that you have to go through some things. You
Right.
have to be there, and just know that there's other people out there, another person at least out there, who's gone through the same things you have. I just think the relatability, and I hope they take hope and understanding with them, that um there's ways to continue on into another stage of life.
Yeah, there is. Although as difficult as it might be in that moment, yes, there is. For
And that's it. But, and it's, again, it's okay to go through that, admit that you went through it, and then build from that.
sure, for sure. Russ, listen, I so appreciate the time today. Thank you for the insights. For our listeners that wanted to learn more about you, or pick up a copy of your book, where can we send them?
Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. Just, type in growth, or A.A. Winston, if you want to throw that in there, and they should pop up. Same thing with the other book, Pieces of Mind.
Well, listen, I appreciate this. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you, Holly. I appreciate everything. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Back we are here on the podcast, and just like Russ, we all have the power within us to turn adversity into growth, to find our voice through our writing, and to honor our experiences by sharing them with others. I'm a really, really big fan of sharing, absolutely. By embracing our past, acknowledging our present, and envisioning our future, we can chart a path towards living a more audacious life. Now, if you're inspired by Russ's story and would like to connect with him directly, you certainly can contact him through the show notes below that they are available. Reach out to him for further insights and conversations about his work and journey. I'm certain that he'd be more than happy to share. Thank you for tuning into the Audacious Living podcast, and I'd encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, share if you haven't done any of those things. These are important in helping this podcast grow and really reach out and inspire more individuals to live audaciously. Remember, an audacious life starts right now. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.